Thank you very much for joining us. Today's webinar topic is how to migrate Oracle to the cloud in 6 simple steps. And we're going to take an overview of about 25, 30 minutes to go through this and share with you our topic and our thoughts on the topic. Who are we? Today's speakers. My name is Greg Newman. I am the VP of Marketing at Zadara, and I'm happy to be joined today by our resident Oracle expert, Noam Shendar. He's our VP and General Manager of Cloud. Hi, Noam.
Hi, everybody. Hello, hello.
Terrific. Thank you. I'm glad everyone can be here. Let's take a quick look at the agenda for today. We're going to start with a brief look at evolving storage needs. I think everybody understands that storage needs are, in fact, evolving. We'll take a quick look at some of the issues that are raised by that. And then in terms of the 6 steps, steps 1 through 5 are really about making sure you're asking and answering some very important questions. And we're going to go through those. And then we're going to take a look at what we think is a complete cloud solution and what the attributes of such a solution are. And then finally, step 6, and certainly what we think is one of the most important, certainly because it's where the rubber meets the road, you might say, and that is actually migrating your data to the cloud. All of us that are doing this for a living know that is a critically important step. And then we're going to leave some time for Q&A because I'm sure that this will raise questions. And we'd like to ask everybody, please use the control panel at GoToWebinar to put your questions in the form of a chat, and we will review those questions at the end, and we'll do our best to get to every one of them. If we don't get to every question on the webinar, we will, in fact, follow up, make sure you get answers. So we will have time for Q&A at the end, and look forward to hearing your questions. With that, let's dive right in. Evolving storage needs. It's funny when you use the word evolution because it feels more like a revolution in some respects, I think, to some of us that are experiencing it. There's been a lot of change in the last few years. It's gone very quickly in some respects, maybe not quickly enough in others, we can argue. But with all of this change, there are certain things that we need to keep an eye on. Noam, you and I were talking about this just yesterday, and we agree that things like storage tiering, a concept that's been around for a while, is still king and is not likely to change. What about some of the things that you think might change? I'm curious where you're seeing issues that you think people ought to pay attention to, Noam.
There are a few big things that are taking place. I like the focus on cloud, and at the same time, when one zooms out and looks at the entire industry, that's not the only story. The absolutely customers everywhere are looking for storage as a service, and the cloud is the most famous way of achieving that. But there's still a lot of data that stays on premises. So when we say that the cloud is making giant inroads, that's a true statement, but not in an exclusive way. Not all workloads are moving to the cloud. There's some workloads that are staying for the time being on premises, and then there are those workloads that over time will migrate, but not soon. So there's a balance between where everything runs, and that's one reason why hybrid clouds are so important. Ones that encompass both the on-premises environment and the public cloud environment.
Yep, it's true. We live in a hybrid world, and certainly that's going to be the case for the foreseeable future. So let's take a look then at some of the issues that arise when you make the decision that you want to embrace the cloud. First, we thought this absolutely should be step 1, and it is exactly what Noam was just alluding to and referring to, and that is multi-cloud compatibility. Those of us that work with Oracle, we know, of course, Oracle Cloud is highly capable and is likely the first choice for your Oracle workloads. But as Noam was saying, that's not the extent of your environment, the extent of your enterprise. And so if your company is like most, if not today, then certainly one day you're going to need to look around and see if you can find a data storage and management solution that can work across multiple clouds, and that may mean multiple public clouds, like Noam mentioned, and it certainly means some ability to work with your on-premises workloads and some mix of clouds. And so some of the attributes that we recommend you keep in mind is not only the ability to move data and connect multiple clouds, but be on the lookout for vendor or cloud lock-in. It's an issue I'm sure we've all encountered. And we simply can't have the kind of lock-in that these vendors might like. Some vendors might like. A lot of talk has been made in the media lately about agility. I'm sure you're hearing that word and having those kinds of discussions at your business. It's not just a buzzword. It's not just a word for C-level executives to bandy about. It actually means something. And what it means, of course, is that we need to keep pace with our customers. Our customers have demands. Our customers have expectations. And our enterprises need to be geared to keep pace with those things. So very
Hmm.
important as we look at these complex environments.
Yeah, and the ability to connect multiple clouds that you touched on, why is that so important? It's important because if data, and I'm going to focus on data specifically. When looking at clouds, we need to look at compute, and we need to look at storage. So I'm going to focus for a second on storage. The data, if it lives within a given cloud, is subject to the infamous egress charges, meaning that moving that data out of the cloud is subject to a per gigabyte fee. And when we think about Oracle class applications, that tends to be a lot of data, and therefore moving the data from one cloud to another would incur a substantial toll. And that's by design. Cloud providers wish the data to remain where it is. The ability to connect multiple clouds means that the same data can be exposed to multiple clouds at the same time, and thereby bypassing the egress conundrum.
Nice. Yeah, a key feature. I agree. Thank you. Let's jump to step 2, advanced features. This should be a no-brainer for all of us that are in enterprise data storage and management and have experience working with our own on-premises data centers. But it really is important to take a pause, take a moment, and remember that when we move out to the cloud, not all clouds are created equal. You need to find a cloud provider that can give you the features you're already using. We've listed a few here. Dedupe, of course, and containers have become big and will continue to be a big part of how we operate and how we run. Remote mirroring and snapshots, and there's more. And I'm sure you have more on your list. As you look at this, you probably can add a few more items to your list. But when we think about running in the cloud, enterprise workloads in the cloud, we absolutely have to keep these in mind. Noam, on this list, what are you hearing more from customers? What do you hear coming up in terms of the type of features they're looking for? What's most frequent?
I hear a lot about disaster recovery. That is something that is for some companies required by law, for other companies a matter of good practice. And the traditional storage systems, the on-premises storage systems, they have these capabilities built in, like remote mirroring, for example. The customers rightfully expect that should they move into a cloud environment, not to lose this capability. And again, they're not allowed to lose that capability, either because of regulation or because of the policies that they've set up for themselves. So I hear a ton about DR, and particularly about remote mirroring. If my data is here in this physical location, remember the cloud, even though it's an abstract concept, it is a physical location. And what I hear a lot from customers is, okay, my data primarily resides in this physical location, let's say on the East Coast of the US. What do I do about having another recent updated copy of that data at a location that is far enough from it that should something terrible happen near the primary location, that I could continue running my business as if nothing had happened?
Mm-hmm. So, right. And so what we hear is that these are not nice to have features. These are gotta haves.
Mm-hmm.
And since you mentioned it, let's go to step 3 in high availability. It's exactly what you just said. You need to think carefully about your disaster recovery plans, and you need to make sure that you have systems in place that can accommodate your business needs. Now, to expand on what you're saying before, I know that we touched on this slide on multi-zone high availability. Maybe you can talk for a minute about multi-zone and what that means and why that's so important.
That's kind of a fun story. The early on in the evolution of our company many years ago, we had a customer come to us and ask us, what happens to the storage if the lights in the data center facility go out? And we plainly stated that, well, if the lights go out, i.e. the facility loses power, the storage goes down. Obviously, we run on electricity. And the customer looked at us back and said, well, that's not good enough. Go back to the drawing board. So we did. And the answer to that is multi-zone high availability, which is taking our storage and stretching it across two buildings. Those buildings would be separated by some distance, and they would ideally be fed by two different utilities so that they're not dependent on a single power provider. And what we did with this technology is to allow for a seamless real-time failover from one building to the other. So now the answer to the question, what happens if the lights go out in the building, is there's another building that picks up exactly where the first building left off, and the show goes on.
Nice. Yeah, and I know high availability is one of those terms that can be defined slightly differently and have different levels of, you might say, capability, depending on who you're talking to and what services they might offer. Would you characterize multi-zone high availability as on the high performance end of that spectrum? Is there?
Yeah, it's at the mission critical end of the spectrum. So you're right. There are various tiers and levels of high availability. This is at the extreme end. And again, if we're talking about Oracle class applications, those are probably mission critical applications, and they need to be protected against things like the proverbial backhoe running over or cutting through the fiber to the building.
It happens. It happens, exactly. All right, very good. Let's talk about step 4. Again, this is the world we live in. There are multiple data types. We all know that we encounter and have to manage block, file, and object storage. In some cases, we find there are cloud providers that have different systems to handle these different data types. Ideally, you want one system that can handle all of them. And we believe strongly that this is critical because things are complex enough. We don't need to add to that complexity. But there are other more technical reasons, Noam, for why, not just a streamlined interface, but other technical reasons for why a single system might actually be imperative.
It's all about efficiency. The reason that the cloud has become as big as it is, and the reason that it's growing at the astonishing pace that it is the need for efficiency. What the cloud is about is spending one's money and using one's resources as efficiently as possible and without waste. And this falls right into that theme. If there's one system that provides all data types, and we're definitely seeing an evolution of applications to use all of these data types, and a lot of interesting things happening on object, for example, then one doesn't want to have to learn new tricks. One doesn't want to have to employ parallel management paradigms that are potentially incompatible with each other. And also one doesn't want to manage any kind of growth with three separate vectors: a block vector, a file vector, and an object vector. What one wants to do is to grow anything using the same semantics, manage everything using the same semantics, and potentially move data again using the same semantics and protection. We talked before about high availability, disaster recovery. Not efficient to have one strategy here, a second strategy here, and yet a third one over there. That flies in the face of efficiency, and of course is inconvenient as well. So the idea here is the cloud is about convenience and efficiency. So should the constituent services of the cloud be, and that's what we're offering here.
Exactly. I will. I'll bring up that word I used near the beginning of our presentation, agility. I think it's a cousin to efficiency, and everything you were just saying, Noam, I think is speaks exactly to that issue as well, the agility that we need to have. Let's take a look at step 5. This is a critical step. It is sometimes overlooked, and as we are in the planning phases of a project, we sometimes forget to think about the support that we're likely to need when we are in the day-to-day business of running our operations. But of course, here at Zadara, we never forget about it because we are a services company. And so it's always top of our minds. And so we made sure to put it on our list here at step 5. The idea of support is one that we often think of as sort of being coming in after the fact or when a problem occurs. We take a very different view here. We think that support should be proactive. We think that support should be about helping you to plan to avoid trouble, not just being there when trouble occurs. It's a little bit like the advice you get from your doctor, right? Eat right and exercise, and you won't have to come see me so often. So we try very hard to engage with our customers in that kind of a manner. And we believe that's the role of support, not just something that follows on. And fortunately, that's not the way every cloud provider chooses to think about support and chooses to engage with their customers. So be on the lookout for that. Be mindful of that, and be sure that you have the kind of support mechanisms and teams in place. And I know, Noam, you can speak to this when it comes to running an Oracle class application. That support can take many forms, and I'm sure all of us who run Oracle can think immediately of some instances where support is absolutely vital.
Yes, and one of the key things is time. And we all have been through a situation where time is wasted because we have to climb up the support chain. The first person that we interact with, it doesn't have the expertise. They have to hand off to a more advanced person, and in some cases, there's a third person that needs to get involved. And each of these handoffs is both time-consuming and inefficient. There needs to be often a recommunication of the same information. This is where it's important to look for vendors who have a single tier of expert support, which is not coincidentally how we've chosen to do things. If you need to contact us for any reason, you get directly to our experts, who are full-time engineers who are actually operating the service on your behalf already. So they're already familiar with what you're doing, what you need, and how to help you. And there's no call center, there are no scripts. This is personalized, one-on-one. Please tell me your problem because it's my responsibility to fix it. I will take care of you.
So this is a terrific segue. That's, of course, exactly how we organize. And I'm glad you mentioned it, Noam, because we want to take a few minutes before we get to step 6 to talk about what we believe is the ideal cloud-based data storage and management service. And it's great to start that story with our support because we are through and through a services company. And when we launched in 2011, we launched with the idea that enterprise data storage and management should be as simple as plugging in any kind of electrical appliance and using it. Now, we all know that's not true with on-premises storage, but why can't it be true? If we're moving to a cloud model, and cloud is just really about services, as Noam mentioned earlier, then surely we can do this. Well, we believe that it takes an organization to have services in its DNA, and we certainly have started with that. But of course, there's much more to it. So let's take a look. If you see this slide in front of you, you can see that what we've built is a true enterprise class data storage and management system. Starting with any data type, we have all three: block, file, and object. in a single system, and we have any protocol. You can see some of them listed here. No, Mike, why don't you talk a little bit about this, because this is really an area we find customers focusing on, and I guess it relates to the fact that they have particular applications they want to run, and they need to know that we can do it.
The whole philosophy, Greg, behind this is that we can't predict the future, and we the consumers of IT, and therefore we need a system that will evolve with us. It is possible to take most existing solutions and configure them to address the requirements as we know them today. The difficult part is what happens when there are new requirements or changed requirements over time. And this is what we set out to do from the very beginning. Let's provide a system that both addresses all of the enterprise needs today and will evolve with shifting needs over time in a seamless way, in a way that is not limited by decisions made before. So if the customer chooses to use the system a certain way, that does not limit their options moving forward. And also a system that doesn't penalize the customer for changes, right? This is the nightmare scenario. I purchased the system, I need to depreciate it over a period of 5 years, but a year and a half into this 5-year period, I found that the system is obsolete for one reason or another. Well, I'm stuck with it. It hasn't depreciated yet, not even close to depreciated. So this is the anti-rigid system. This is the system that will meet all of these needs and also gracefully shift among these various capabilities. And you can see it's a universal set of protocols across the block, file, and object spheres, and it also covers the on-prem, public cloud, and hybrid environments, and again in a dynamic way. One can start in one type of location and over time shift partially or even completely into the other type of location. That either means a journey to the cloud, or in some cases we have customers who take a journey back from the cloud. They realize that there are things that they don't like or that they don't like about the cloud or miss about the on-prem environment, and they move back. Total freedom to do that with no penalty.
So to be clear, we have cloud will travel. We really are on premises with the exact same services as we offer in the cloud. I know this is something that some customers, when you speak to them, know, they struggle to get their minds around a little bit because it's so different than how other companies approach this market. I wonder if we could just take a moment to clarify what our on-prem offering really is.
Fair enough, Greg. And you're right. It is a concept so different from anything that has existed to date that it sometimes is hard to comprehend, sometimes hard to believe. But it exists, and here's what it is. When it comes to the on-prem environment, we deliver to the customers an actual storage array, physical storage array with any combination of SSDs and or hard drives that the customer desires. And the beauty and the uniqueness of this is the customer at this point has not paid anything, because they pay for resources actually consumed. And by definition, the thing that we've just shipped to them is not yet being consumed. So in essence, you, the customer, have received a storage array for free. We remotely operate this storage array on behalf of you, the customer. And in the process, we also meter the usage and then bill you, the customer, in arrears for actual usage, meaning that you pay for example, for capacity used, not for capacity you have. Maybe we shipped you 200 terabytes, but you're only using 80 terabytes. You'll pay for the 80. The remaining 120 are on us, and they act as spares. They act as room to expand, but what they're not is charged. You don't pay for those. That's absolutely unique. You, the customer, have the choice to grow into the available space. You have the choice to shrink and free up space and pay less as a result. And should you reach a certain level of utilization, we will contact you and ask would you like us to ship additional capacity, again, at no cost to you because it's not yet consumed? And you can guide us in terms of what your growth rate is, how much more you would like, and also type. You can say, I want more SSDs. My growth is likely to be around some very high performance databases, for example. The same is true within your existing setup as well. If you want to shift from hard drives to SSDs for more performance, from SSDs to hard drives for more cost-effective dollars per gigabyte, you can do that. So you use the resources you need, don't use the ones you don't, pay only for what you're using. It's the ultimate in flexibility, and it's exactly the same thing that's in the cloud, which means that if you want to have a DR copy, right, a secondary copy in the cloud, you can do that at the push of a button. The thing in the cloud is exactly, in all respects, hardware, software, and price, as the thing that you have on premises, meaning the seamless ability to journey to the cloud, to burst to the cloud, to migrate and or to use the cloud as a disaster recovery site for your primary location.
Thank you for that. I didn't expect to speak about that on this slide, but I realized as we were talking that it might be a good idea, and I appreciate your walkthrough there, Noam. I hope that everyone on this webinar found that useful. It is a concept that is worthy of taking a moment on. I want to make sure that we keep on pace and be respectful of everyone's time. So let's get through the next few slides. The power of the data center, the convenience of the cloud. I think, as Noam was just talking about, we really take an approach that is different from others in the industry because we are a pure play storage services company. And you can see that, and you'll see in a moment a few more details, we do bring enterprise grade performance and security, and that's important. But really what we're talking about here is doing it in an agile and flexible manner, doing as Noam talked about earlier also, which is that this is about making sure that the technology evolves as needs evolve. And then, as I was mentioning before, fully managed proactive service. We believe the only, certainly the first 100% uptime guarantee in the industry. And of course, we can do that because we have total control over our systems and we manage them in this proactive manner. So we have a guarantee out there that we think is unrivaled. Noam, I know we've managed our performance and we look at the numbers and they've been pretty impressive. Our systems are pretty robust.
Indeed, they are great. Our track record over a 7-year uninterrupted period is 5.5 nines of availability, so 99.9995, or even a little better than that percent of uptime. And you may be asking yourself, well, wait a second, you said a 100% uptime guarantee, but you just said it's not 100%, it's 99.9995%. Both of these facts both of these statements are true, and here's what we mean. What we mean by the 100% uptime guarantee is that we don't accept any downtime as a matter of course. Whereas most SLAs up there tell you, the customer, well, we're allowed to go down for 5 minutes a year and you just need to deal with it. And there is no recourse for you. We think that's wrong. We think that's not thinking about the problem right. No downtime is acceptable. No downtime is normal. Nobody likes, nobody enjoys, nobody should accept downtime. So that's how we run our business. And the 100% uptime guarantee means that in those very, very, very rare events that there is a loss of access to the data, no matter how brief, we will consider that a creditable downtime. In other words, we will pay money back to you, the customer, because you experienced downtime, even though it's going to be even if it's within this 5.5 nines envelope, that's still unacceptable, and you deserve compensation for that. So that's what I mean by 100%, and it's really a mentality that we're demonstrating here, that we don't accept downtime, we regret every downtime, we work proactively to prevent all downtime, no matter how brief.
Thank you. Exactly. We take that seriously. Let's talk about a few of these capabilities. We've touched on these as requirements. I think it's important for our audience to see that That requirements list was in fact our list for creating the systems that we run here at Zadara. Noam, you might have a couple of highlights that you want to mention, because I know there's certain things that are important.
Just a few things, and we'll keep things moving along. We talked about the multi-zone high availability. That's very, very important for mission critical applications. We talked about the remote mirroring. Let's talk for a little bit about the top right of this. So having all the protocols supported means a lot of flexibility to run applications and also to protect them. So having the same snapshot, the same remote mirroring capability for all of these block and file protocols at the same time means a very powerful system that's very well protected. It's very flexible in terms of environments to use multiple operating systems at the same time. So NFS and CIFS and means that one can mix and match Windows and Linux servers like Oracle Enterprise Linux. And by the way, we're able to expose volumes as both NFS and CIFS at the same time. So in some cases, they tend to be specific instances customers want to expose the same data to the two types of operating systems at the same time. That's a pretty big deal. And my last word in this will be the remote mirroring in the middle of the bottom row. I wanted to emphasize again, the remote mirroring can be within the cloud region to region or between an on-prem and cloud environment. In other words, it can be from cloud on the East Coast to cloud on the West Coast. It could be among clouds, from Oracle Cloud to another cloud, AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. And it can also be from an on-prem environment to the cloud, or vice versa, from the cloud to an on-prem environment.
Very good. Yep. Let's dive deeper and take a look. This is a slide I know that a lot of our customers and viewers find very interesting. I wish we could spend a whole lot of time on it. I know we can't, but this is at the heart of the system. Let's do a quick walkthrough here so people understand the nature of our system. When we talk about multi-tenant efficiency and a single tenant experience, this is what it looks like. Noam, you and I were talking yesterday about this and the example we have here. Why don't you run through what it means? What are the implications for customer on Zadara array number 1 and customer on Zadara array number 2 in an environment like this?
Absolutely, Greg. And I want to underscore first, this is our own technology that we developed. And sometimes that's a question, so we say that we're a pure play services company. That's true, but it doesn't mean that we are relying on a third party technology. We don't. We developed our technology from the ground up for exactly this use case. And here's a view into this technology. What you should be able to glean from this picture, at first you have two tenants, let's call them, and one is using array number 1, that's the green array, and another one is using array number 2. This could be a single company with 2 different departments, or it could be 2 different companies sharing a multi-tenant cloud environment. Doesn't matter, works the same way. So at first you should be able to see that tenant number 1 and tenant number 2 share nothing. They live in entirely parallel universes. Tenant number 1 has his or her own drives, his or her own CPU cores and memory running the storage stack. And the same is true for tenant number 2, who again has his or her own dedicated drives, dedicated CPU, dedicated memory. So these 2 arrays, which are full-fledged storage arrays with all the features that we mentioned before, from RAID protection to snapshots, replication, etc., are entirely and perfectly isolated from each other. There's nothing that tenant number 1 can do to affect tenant number 2, and nothing that tenant number 2 can do to affect tenant number 1. And this scales up. So you can have 1,000 tenants, and none of them, no one tenant can affect any other tenant. So that's one takeaway from this picture. The other takeaway for this picture is the resilience built into the system. So to explain a little bit visually what you're looking at, each vertical column on the right, there are 5 of them, is a physical node. It's a server. We call it a storage node. So it's a standard piece of hardware. So we're looking at 5 different storage nodes, and what we see that the drives that tenants are using are spread horizontally across multiple nodes. That's true both for the green and for the blue tenants. And in fact, it's true for all tenants, no matter how many. And also that we have redundant controllers always on separate nodes. The green tenant has an active controller on the first node and a passive controller on the fourth, and the blue one has an active controller on the first node and a standby controller on the third. So now let's talk about resilience. And to talk about resilience, let's blow away the first node. Imagine that the first node just ceased operations. Maybe both power supplies failed at the same time, as unlikely as that is. So imagine the first one is gone. What happens essentially is nothing. In other words, nothing stops. Everything keeps working. Why? Because there are standby controllers on the third and fourth nodes, respectively, and all of the drives are RAID protected horizontally in horizontal groups, which means that each RAID group has only lost one drive and therefore is still operational. Moreover, the system is self-healing because two additional things happen after the failover. One is the spawning of new standby controllers on available nodes, maybe on the second and fifth nodes, respectively, and the rebuilding of RAID groups using the spare drives, which are the drives that are white in this diagram. So we could take away the most important node in the system, which is the first node that is running all the active loads and has 3 active drives, and yet the show goes on, and the system goes back to a fully redundant state. This is the patented architecture that we've implemented and that we've been running, as I mentioned, over 7 years with really remarkable levels of availability.
Thank you, Noam. I know that there's lots more we can talk about on this slide, and many of you may have questions about the material presented on this slide. Please make sure you put them in the chat window and we can address them at the end. Let's move on. We'll stop briefly on this slide. It's important. All the power that Noam was talking about really is nothing without control. And here is a snapshot of our interface. As hard as we worked on the guts of our system, we've also developed a very easy to use interface that gives you all of the control you need and all of the control you're familiar with if you run storage arrays now. And so we're not going to turn this into a software tour, but we thought it's important for you to see that, in fact, you do have control. As much as we like to have ourselves be right out there, proactive, and we're certainly service-minded and service-oriented, at the end of the day, this is your storage array, and you control
it. And I'll add very briefly, imagine because it's true, that you can be in a cloud environment and yet know down to the physical spindle or SSD where your data lives. That's the level of visibility that this provides.
Excellent. That's right. Thank you. All right. And so we did promise you there are 6 steps, and we are in fact at step number 6. And like I'd said at the top of this presentation, we think this is where the rubber meets the road. This is now becoming a real project. How do you get your data that exists on premises, quite likely, right, to Oracle Cloud, to really any cloud? There are a series of steps, and over the years, we have done hundreds of these. We have perfected a method for moving large amounts of data. In fact, we have customers with petabytes of data. You may have similar amounts of data in your operation, and it's not realistic to think we're just going to plug in some kind of an internet connection and voila, that data is moved. So let's take a look. Noam, I'd like to pass control to you, but I tell you what, for this, in the interest of time, I'm going to click through and let's have you comment. Starting with a live data volume, we move to because this is a technical operation, Noam, I want to make sure I don't miss anything. We start with a mirror, right, in step 1. And everybody knows what that's about, of course, mirroring. But here's where it gets a little more interesting. In step 2, we actually create a mirror of that mirror. And we do this for a purpose. We're preparing to do something here. And what we're preparing to do is actually, and you can see there's a little picture of a truck there. There's a reason there's a picture of a truck there. We actually ship these drives physically to the cloud. And in so doing, we're able to move large amounts of data safely and quickly into a cloud platform like Oracle Cloud. Noam, I know I've glossed over, I'm sure, a few details. Please help us understand, for all of us, what really transpires here.
This is good. Do one more click, because the clincher is right there. Once the second mirror resides at the cloud location, we reestablish the mirror. This is step 4 in this slide, and then all that we need to do is sync the data that has changed since the truck, or to be more literal, it's actually an airplane. We ship everything overnight. So only the data that changed while let's say while FedEx was moving the data has to be synced to the cloud location. So exactly as Greg introduced this, how do you move a petabyte or more into the cloud with minimal downtime? This is how you do it. You have 2 copies of the data that are identical at the time that the shipment begins. Over the course of a day or 2, there are some changes that occur to that data, but because we've moved the petabyte plus already into the cloud, all we need to do is over the network sync the changes that occurred during transport, and then at that point, you, the customer, can cut over your application from the on-prem location to the cloud location in a matter of minutes. So to recap, how do I move petabytes of data into the cloud in a couple of days with only minutes worth of cutover time? This is how.
And of course, we can do this because we are a complete solution. In other words, we have hardware, and we've engineered that hardware, and it's industry-leading hardware to work with our software. And because of that, we can architect solutions exactly like this. I know it's 8:43 here locally, so we're 43 minutes into this. Let's get through a couple of slides quickly. We want to show you that when we talk about our operations and where we can move data, we see here that we have operations for Zadara worldwide. Literally, the sun does not set on our operations, and that means that we can craft solutions for virtually any use case, any geography, even the most complex. Who trusts us? Who are we doing business with? If you haven't heard of Zadara before, we thought it might be a good idea to take a quick stop here and show you at least some of the logos. We have hundreds more, but these are a few logos, and you can see that these companies, many of them are name brands, and in a variety of industries. We are performing all manner of jobs for them. In other words, they have different types of requirements and media and configurations, but in all cases, these are complex implementations, enterprise workloads, and fairly demanding. I know, Noam, you wanted to talk a little bit about Harvard, so I included a slide about Harvard. It is a good story, and I think it highlights one of our key features. So I put a slide together for that purpose.
Thanks, Greg. I love this story because it so well demonstrates why one would want agile storage and the concrete benefits of that. Educational institutions, and we have several of them as customers, obviously are cyclical businesses, and they have terms, and they're more busy during the terms and they're less busy during the breaks in between the terms. And Harvard in particular was excited when we told them that we have a feature that we call hibernation. The hibernation feature lets one shut down the controllers and stop paying for them while maintaining the data in place, just inaccessible due to the lack of controllers. That means that idle data costs a lot less than data that is being actively accessed. And the initial intent was to shut down the controllers during the breaks in between terms, but Harvard took it a step further, and they actually shut down the controllers or hibernate the controllers at the end of each week. Friday after classes end, and then they wake them up again early Monday morning before classes resume. So not only do they not pay for storage they're not using in terms of capacity, they're also not paying for their controllers both during breaks and even on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Those are idle and cost them $0.
Excellent. So let's, and I personally like a good story. Thank you. I know we have others, but I think it makes our benefits more concrete when you hear actual use cases like that. So thank you. We have a little bit of time for questions. I know we went a little bit longer than I anticipated. When we get going, I suppose, when we talk about this stuff, we get excited, and there's certainly lots to share. So thank you, everyone, for staying with us here through the course of this presentation. And if you have questions, please type them into the chat box here. I know we have a few already that have come in. And Noam, I thought perhaps you can help me answer some of these. I'll share the first one. It says here, ours is an EBS 12.1.3 environment. Do you know of any big companies who have or plan to move this on cloud?
I would say not specifically, but I would also add that we have not met an application that we cannot support in the cloud. And the reason that I make the sweeping statement is that we designed the system to do exactly that, to provide an on-prem-like environment in the cloud. So when we talk about presenting LUNs and providing zoning for those LUNs, when we talk about creating file shares, be they NFS or CIFS, when it comes to supporting ACCOs, when it comes to supporting Active Directory, et cetera, everything that we do is designed to provide the enterprise experience in a cloud-like fashion, both in the cloud and on-prem. And we know, if you look at our resumes of the founding team, we came from NetApp, and we came from EMC, and we came from IBM, and we came from HP. Those are the same companies that provide the traditional on-premises storage. We took those capabilities and re-engineered them to be available anywhere that you need them in a highly agile and flexible way.
Excellent. We have another question. I want to make sure we get to a few here before we have to break. As a DBA, will I have command line access to my systems? Good question.
Absolutely. We talked about control. Control means control. Everything that we do is API driven, and therefore every user, every customer has full access to the full set of commands via both command line and graphical user interface, both of which cover 100% of the functionality.
Excellent. We have another good question from the same attendee. Thank you very much. And this question is, we have lots, excuse me, we have lots of cron jobs. Will I be able to maintain those?
Again, yes. This environment is designed to be equivalent and scriptable, and therefore you can run your cron jobs as you did before. Depending on what those cron jobs activate, you may need to have cron trigger a script with different commands using our command set, which is publicly available at guide.zadarastorage.com. But yes, any of these commands can be cron. The Harvard example I gave about the weekend shutdowns, that's powered by cron.
Very good. Another question, I think we only have time for one or two more. This question is, how does licensing work for Oracle database? I think I know what they mean by that. And maybe you can talk a little bit about our Oracle Cloud relationship, Noam, and some other aspects of how we work with Oracle.
Absolutely. I can't get in the way of licensing, right? That's a question between the customer and Oracle. We do recognize that there are licensing challenges when trying to run Oracle in non-Oracle clouds, which is exactly why we have a relationship with Oracle Cloud to make sure that customers who wish to use Oracle Cloud have access to our technology. And so our relationship is such that we are available as local storage to Oracle Cloud users in the regions where we are deployed, and we keep adding additional regions. By local, I mean that the storage is visible inside your private network inside the Oracle Cloud. It means that the latency is local latency, 1 to 2 milliseconds of latency. And then, of course, the throughput also is local throughput thanks to dedicated multiple 10 gigabit fibers that connect us into the Oracle Cloud. So the experience is a local experience by design through collaboration with Oracle themselves. And that means that one can connect us to directly to applications running in the Oracle Cloud.
Excellent. For the final question, because I know we're out of time, here's a question I can handle. How can I try your solutions? That's a great question. Thank you for asking. As it happens, we have a free trial available on our website. You can go to zadara.com and you can sign up for a free trial where we will get with you and make sure we understand your needs. So one of our solution architects and engineers will get with you and make sure that the free trial we do run is appropriate for your use case and your needs. So please do, if you have an interest in trying it, we do have a free trial opportunity, and it's available at zadara.com. Again, I want to thank everybody for attending today. We ran just a little bit longer than we thought, but we're able to keep this to about 50 minutes. I'm glad for that. And I feel very grateful to Noam Shendar. Thank you very much, Noam, for your participation today and sharing all of your expert information. Thank you. With that, I would like to sign off. And again, if you have questions and you'd like to contact us, you can see on the screen, you can reach us at sales@zadara.com, or please do visit us at our website at zadara.com. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.